Yeah, Anna, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today. Can I just double check how to say your surname?
Sure, it's Anna Vatuone.
Vatuone, okay, cool. Anna
Mhm.
Vatuone, I love it. So Anna, yeah, I wanted to have you on today because I have seen you out and about on Substack and on TikTok, and I'm really, really intrigued about the process you've used to grow your Substack following through TikTok and how you're using that uh to drive readers towards your book, Lonely Girl. So we're going to talk about all that cool stuff today. But as I start off, Anna, just tell me a little bit about yourself. So where are you from? What's your background? What do you do for a living? All that sort of thing. So I'll hand over to you for that.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me. This is like such a treat. And David, I've been following you on Substack and have really enjoyed all of your content. And, to finally actually have a moment to connect and message back and forth and just share stories was just so much fun. So thank you for having me. I grew up in California, just an hour and a half south of San Francisco in a small town called Gilroy.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to college up north of San Francisco. And after college, I started a business as a personal brand strategist. And so I was about a year into my business or a year into running my business when the pandemic hit and the whole world kind of hid away and started hunkering down. And I think it was for a lot of us, it was also a point of reflection too, like what we really wanted and what was important to us. And so I had been in the Bay Area for a few years and was living on my own at that point in Oakland. And I just really felt like I didn't want to live in the Bay Area any longer. I had just had this kind of situationship and was just feeling brokenhearted. And I just really felt in my heart of hearts that I wasn't going to have the future that I wanted in the Bay Area. And so I decided to take this cross country road trip. And I did it without really knowing where I was going. I didn't have a destination in mind, but I just knew that I wanted to get to the East Coast
Mm-hmm.
because I wanted to see the leaves change color in the fall. And I just had always romanticized it in my head. I just thought it was this really beautiful place and I had never been. And so I started my trip on a Monday night, and my first stop was Reno, Nevada.
Well,
And in Reno, I just started having all of these second thoughts. I had so many doubts. I got into this really grimy casino at like 2 in the morning, and I was like, what did I just do? Like, I'm driving across the country right now in the middle of the pandemic. I don't even know if I have enough money to make it across. Like at that point, it was a year into owning my own business, and things were good, but they weren't, and then they were good and they weren't. You know how it goes.
yep.
And so I was just nervous and I was by myself and I was alone and I just thought, maybe I need to turn around. And so I had pretty much made up my mind that I was going to go home the next morning. And the next morning comes around and I wake up and the first thing that I do is call my mom and I
Mm-hmm.
tell her that I think I'm turning around. And we had this kind of heart to heart. And she said, Anna, you are always welcome to come home. You always have a place here, but I don't think that's what you really want. And I think the question you really need to answer is, where do you want to belong?
Mm-hmm.
And had she not said that, I don't think I would be where I am right now. I don't think I would have continued on, but I did. And so I kept driving. I made it to Denver. I went to Salt Lake City. I went to Boulder, went through Nebraska and ended up staying in Chicago for a while. And then finally made it to the East Coast. And then I made it to Boston. And when I got to Boston, I knew instantly I wanted to live here, that it was the place that I was supposed to be, and just really fell in love with it. And yeah, I found this apartment on Charles Street in Beacon Hill, which is like old Boston. And I went and saw this apartment and I basically applied for it that night. It was the only apartment that I saw. And within a week, I decided to move there. And I had to start completely from scratch. I only had two suitcases in the back of my Jeep, but I was just pretty certain that this is going to be my life. And it was. And so that's how I got here. And during that time on my road trip is when I really started utilizing TikTok.
Mm-hmm.
And I just knew that I really wanted to tell stories, but I didn't know how. And I wasn't sure what was going to be effective, but I knew that I wanted to talk about my road trip because I felt like maybe that was the type of content that potentially could do well on TikTok. And so during my trip, and actually after my trip ended, I started making these voiceover videos. And what I would do is like set up my phone and hit record. And
Mm,
I'd be like at a coffee shop and I would record myself drinking a cup of coffee, or I would record myself at a bookstore, like grabbing a book off the shelf.
mm,
And I would put these montages of clips all together. And then I would record a voiceover, which would be like a story or a thought I was having that day. And I overlaid that voiceover onto the clips.
okay.
And so I started posting those videos back in 2020. And it was the first time really in my life that I had been very candid and honest about what I was feeling.
Mm,
I was talking about this loneliness that I had felt in my life. I'd never been in a relationship before. And I was talking about moving to a new city and trying to make new friends as an adult and all of these kind of vulnerable things that I'd really never shared in a public facing way before I just started doing on TikTok.
mm.
And that's when things really took off. I still remember like the first video that went viral. I was like beside myself. I was like, I can't believe this. Like, I've been working at content creation for years and nothing has ever hit before. And the
Hmm.
feeling was just like deeply like, I felt so grateful, but just proud of myself, And I just kept doing it over and over again. And yeah, that's really how I built my platform was on TikTok.
Mm,
Um, and then I got a little bit more courage and I started sharing those same videos on Instagram, which was hard because I had all of my friends from high school and college and like people who really knew me well on Instagram.
mm,
And so there was a little bit of yeah, fear there of sharing that same sort of content on Instagram, but it ended up still kind of working the same way that TikTok had.
mm,
And I think, part of my maybe hesitation in sharing this was that I was beginning to build my brand as a brand strategist and
mm,
helping people build their personal brands. And so the content that I was sharing was kind of much different than here's how to build your personal brand, which
mm.
was what I thought I had to do. And so I had to kind of reconcile that a little bit and just make a choice, like what was I going to use my platform to do? And
Mhm.
ultimately, I decided that I really wanted to tell stories and that I wanted to share these honest parts of myself and my life. And that's what has really ended up working in the end. So, yeah, that's a little bit about me and my background.
Awesome, awesome. And just as you're talking about being Boston, I've chosen the right cap tonight as well for
Yeah,
that by accident. But
that's
yeah.
amazing.
But yeah, no, I mean, Anna, I read some of your story on your about page on Substack, and you kind of expanded on that here, and it's an incredible story, just how you just decided to just go one night and just went coast to coast pretty much, and ended up in a totally different city and started again, and it's requires so much courage to do that. And then just to document that process as well on TikTok. And I mean, you deserve the success you've got. Obviously, like that's it. That's a very courageous decision, and it's obviously paid off in that sense. In that you build a platform there. And I'm assuming TikTok is your main base. Is that where your main audience lies?
Yes, that's
Yeah.
where my main audience lies. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. And yeah, I've been watching what you're doing. It's fantastic, and I also want to talk more about that as well. But um, what advice would you give to other writers? I just kind of want to ask this question first, who are writing a book, or they have already written a book, or they have a series of books, and they want to use TikTok to promote it. Obviously, you've done something very specific with that, and it's worked very well for you. Can you tell me more about what you've done to promote Lonely Girl and what that process has looked like?
Yes. So I'll give you the very practical answer first. The one thing that really worked on TikTok and is continuing to work is photo posts.
Okay.
And I think it's because it's a new feature that TikTok has rolled out. So they're really prioritizing people and accounts that are sharing content in this format.
Mm,
And so what I would do is I would take the first photo in this carousel of posts and I would make it a picture of me. And on that first photo, I would put the first sentence of this story and then maybe like the second sentence right after. So the first two sentences would be the beginning of the story. And then as you scroll through the rest of the post, it's just white, like blank, a white background with the rest of the story in black text.
Mm.
And that's all it is. And so what I would do is share these photo posts, and they've just done really well. And I found that what works is diving like straight into the narrative. So just forget the headline, forget anything else, and just dive straight into the action. And then those posts do seem to do well. And then at the very end, leaving some sort of call to action. Like if you enjoyed this story, or if you enjoyed this post, make sure to subscribe on Substack, and that's where I share more of X, Y, and Z.
Okay.
And so I just kind of followed this format. The other thing that I would do too is look at TikTok has a tool called Creator Search Insights, and it will tell you exactly what people are searching for on TikTok. And if you look through it and you look for a keyword that's associated with the story or the topic you're writing about, you kind of want to match it up and see like, okay, are people searching for loneliness? Are people searching for motivation? If no one is searching for this specific keyword, then can I optimize my post to use a different keyword and still have it be authentic and hit the same? And so you're kind of, doing both at the same time, looking through Creator Search Insights and optimizing your post so that it has a chance. And luckily, loneliness is something people are searching for, believe it or not. And so that ended up helping a lot. But I think on TikTok, remembering that it is a search platform, it's just like Google. And so you can't really just throw things off into the void anymore and just like hope it flies. Like that used to be the case. Anything could go and it would probably do well. Now it's much more methodical. You kind of have to look and see, how are people actually using this platform? And can I contribute to the conversation something of value that answers someone's question that they have, or a longing or an emotion? Can I meet that emotion with my writing?
Yeah. And it's refreshing to hear someone talk about TikTok in those terms, because I think so often people just view TikTok as the silly app for teenagers kind of thing, because it's been that way a lot of the time. Like I've been on public transport before and just watching kids just scroll endlessly through videos, just, for like an hour mindlessly. So it's awesome to hear someone talk about it as a search engine and really put a lot of thought into what kind of stuff they're posting, and there's a process for that, and obviously that's paid dividends for you as well. And I actually, when you talk about that, I've kind of used that process recently too. So I have another book coming out in like November kind of time that I'm self-publishing, and I need to find some ARC readers for it. So I kind of use the same sort of process as you, where I put up snippets of the text, kind of just as a synopsis describing what the book is, and those were in like photo posts. And I noticed that those did a lot better than standard videos. So it's really interesting, and you're hitting the nail on the head with that. Um, but yeah, like I think it's fascinating to see that how that's filtered from TikTok through to Substack. And
Yeah.
tell me more about the way what your offer looks like for Substack for paid subscribers. So what do people get first of all if they become free subscribers, and then what do they get if they become paid?
So this is a good question. For the first year and a half that I had my Substack, I did have the paid feature, or I had the subscription set up, and I didn't really push it. I just really focused on giving out everything for free, and it was really just personal pieces and stories that are kind of related mostly to my life and lived experience, but there were a lot of topics around loneliness because I
Mm,
knew that I was going to be eventually sharing my book. And so I kind of wanted to prime people for that.
mm-hmm.
But there wasn't much of a distinction at all. It was like, really, okay, what do I feel like today? I'll just share that. And then when I knew that the book was going to come out, thanks to your post, by the way, like I have you to thank.
No, you don't.
Fact, yes, I do. Had I not seen your post, I just need to hold on, set the record straight. I know I'm just jumping here, but because I saw your post, David, you posed this question of like, what do you think about authors publishing their books on Substack?
Okay.
And I read through every single person's comment on that note.
Mm,
And by the end, I had made the decision that I was going to do it. I was like, this is exactly what I want to do. But it
really?
hadn't not been for your post, I don't know how it would have happened, but it was
Wow,
really my catalyst for doing this.
cool.
So thank you.
No worries.
All that to say, when I decided to publish Lonely Girl serially on Substack, the the paid subscription is what allows readers to get all of the chapters.
Mm,
So I left the first chapter out for free.
mm,
But every chapter after that, you have to be a paid subscriber to read everything. I will say I give really pretty like big previews away.
mm,
Um, so you can get a gist of it. And then right now I'm really not focusing on publishing anything other than those chapters.
mm.
So it's
Okay.
really just one chapter a week for paid
Yeah.
readers. But maybe
Okay.
I should, now that I'm thinking about it, maybe I should do more.
Mm.
But that's just kind of been what's working right now.
No, fair enough. And as you said, it's working. Like you built a great free subscriber base and a paid subscriber base now as well. I was reading the post you put up earlier on notes. Sorry, my camera's kind of bouncing around here a little bit. This table's not very sturdy. Um, so you said that you started on Substack in March 2023, and by December you had 390 subscribers, all the way down to September
Mhm.
2024, which is now, and you have over 4,000 and 316 paid, which is incredible. And how you've gone from, of just a few hundred free subscribers to what you've got now. Like that's an incredible journey, incredible process, and you've done it relatively fast as well. Like a lot of other publications have been on Substack for a lot longer than that and haven't got anywhere near those kind of numbers. And your ratio was really good too. Like
Mhm.
it's much better than mine. I've got like more free subscribers, but I've got fewer paid subscribers, and that's something I always want to try and improve. Want to try and increase that percentage. So the
Yeah.
process you've used is incredible. Um, I want to ask as well just about you sort of said you weren't sure about the future, what you're going to do with it, but can you see yourself publishing the book, like a physical
Yeah.
copy of the book someday? Yeah.
I don't think I'll be able to rest until I have this baby of mine in my hands.
Yeah.
So the plan is to publish everything on Substack first, and then I'll put the book in print, hopefully in time for the holidays. That's kind
Hmm.
of my hope. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I'm publishing a book serially as well, at the minute, and it's kind of a bit of a learning curve for me too. I'm just publishing like a quite small section each week. It's like a young adult spooky horror kind of thing. And it's not even finished yet, so there's gonna come a point where I start writing the rest of it to kind of fill it all in. So that's gonna be interesting. But I'm probably gonna follow the same process as you, where I get it all on Substack first. At the minute it's all free for me, but I might eventually make it all paid, and then release it as a physical book as well. Which is a fun process to do. But yeah, it's funny how just people sharing conversations on Substack on notes and things like that kind of catalyzes us. You know what I mean? Like it does kind of things we hadn't even thought of before just start as little sparks, and then we end up doing these kind of things, which is amazing. And you've already described your Substack journey. That was one of the questions I had for you. Um, Tell me a little bit more about PBA.
Yeah,
When,
so I
when,
created a program a few years back called Personal Brand Accelerator. And really the whole concept of the program and the course is how to build your personal brand, but how to do so as a human and
mm,
not a company. And I think a lot of the advice that we're given as entrepreneurs, artists, writers, creators who are trying to build a platform is rooted in the same ideology that a company would take on. So, like, this is how to market your company, this is how to market your brand or build a brand as a company. And we take that, but it's not really applicable to us as human beings
mm,
and who we are and how we relate and how we want to express ourselves. And, so much of PBA is it is a course that helps people learn how to build their personal brand in the practical sense.
mm,
But it's also a lot of people find that it's kind of a spiritual exercise too, and learning how to just be yourself online, and also trust that you know what to say and how
mm,
and when to say it. And
mm.
that's a really tough skill to learn as a creator and as an entrepreneur, but um, it can be learned. And that's kind of what we help people learn in PBA.
Okay. Do you think
Yeah.
writers need to have uh, a personal brand for themselves as well?
Oh my gosh. I think it is the most important, I would say second to the actual writing, it's like the most important thing.
Mm,
And what some of the rhetoric I've been seeing on notes is like this, you know, oh, Substack is going to save us from social media. And it's just like so not I think the headspace or the mindset to try to be in when you're trying to get your work out there and you're trying to share your writing with people and get it seen by people,
mm,
and the people who really need to hear it. It's like, no, we don't want to be um, minimizing the tools that are at our disposal. We want to use them.
mm-hmm,
And so if it's a tool, use it. And if you don't, maybe if it doesn't really align or if it's not feeling right, maybe that's one thing, but it could be something to explore. Like, why have you told yourself this isn't a good tool to use?
mm,
And yeah, I'm noticing that I'm seeing that a lot of notes, and it's like, I hope that we can start to change that a little bit.
yeah. I think a lot of it kind of comes from the more toxic side of social media. I think TikTok and Instagram and things like that are different. I think if you go the other way towards Twitter and that sort of thing, especially
Right.
because it's so suppressed now as well, a lot of people I think are coming from platforms like Twitter, maybe LinkedIn to Substack.
Mm,
I don't think the connection up to this point has been as obvious between Instagram and TikTok and Substack, but I think it's becoming more so as time is going on. I've heard people describe Substack as like the Instagram for writers sometimes
yeah,
as
I could
well.
see that.
Yeah, which is
Yeah.
cool, and it's cool people are kind of making that connection now, and obviously they're focusing more on video content and photo content as well, on Substack. So it's kind of becoming the everything app that Twitter's been trying to be for years and has failed to do so far.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, you're totally right. Like, people do have this kind of it's social media versus Substack, but it's definitely not
Right.
the case. Like, they can definitely be blended together. They can work together as part of an overall ecosystem for each writer, I think. And I think it's about trying to figure out what works best for you. So like
Yes.
for me, I prefer to use things that are more text-based. Even though I do have a podcast with video on it, and I use YouTube as well to some extent. And I'm trying to use TikTok. I'm not quite as good at it as you just yet, but I'm working on it bit by bit. But I think it's about having a bit of a repertoire, like strings to your bow, that kind of thing, and be able to flex your online muscles a little bit. Um, what would you say to writers who struggle with that? So people who do struggle with social media, they struggle to be to like put themselves out there and build a personal brand online. What kind of advice would you give them to deal with that?
It is learnable. If
Mm,
you, it is so learnable. It is so possible to do it well. And I think the only difference between someone who is in quote successful on platforms like Instagram or TikTok and someone that maybe doesn't have a presence yet is that they just haven't given up. They've just
mm,
kept going. They've kept posting. And I can say, if you've tried using TikTok or Instagram before and you haven't had a great experience with it, first of all, I want to acknowledge that. And I'm so sorry that that has been your experience because your experience is real and how
mm,
you feel about what has happened is so valid. But two, I wonder if we can look at these platforms through a different lens and
mm,
start to maybe try to find a new perspective and a new way of looking at it and sharing on these platforms. Like David, you yourself love the idea of like you're focused on like the text-based platforms, and that's really it seems like where you like to be and what comes naturally. And if I were to say talking to you, I would say lean into that.
mm.
So even though Instagram and TikTok are maybe considered visual platforms, you don't necessarily have to post visual things on them. You don't have
Right.
to necessarily post videos on TikTok. Maybe you just post long form writing on TikTok.
Mm,
Like, let's just see. I mean, I think part of it too is like we come up with these rules of what we can or can't do on these platforms, and they're not always true. Like, who says that we can't do that? Or who says that we can't post a certain way on Instagram? Like, I'm always catching myself. I'm like, I can't do that. But then I'm like, why?
why
Why
not?
can't I do that?
Yeah.
You know? So, wherever, lean into what feels natural and then try to adopt that on whatever platform you're using.
Mm, that's a good
Yeah.
point. And even things like, faceless YouTube videos and stuff like that, people, or faceless YouTube channels, should I say? people have started those and been really successful with them and done really well. And I think, yeah, I think you're right. I think we kind of decide for ourselves that there's certain rules we have to abide by based on what other people have done before us. And the best way to stand out is to break those rules and do something a little bit different, you know?
Mhm.
Um, and wanted to say as well, Anna, just about uh, you talked a little bit about your business and about personal branding and TikTok. How do you kind of see all that developing for yourself over the next few years? What would you what would you want to be with all that in say 5 years? I know it's a big question and it's hard to visualize that far in advance. But if you could say this is where I'd like to be with TikTok and writing and everything and Substack, what would it look like for you?
Mm. Oh, what a nice question. I would love to do what I'm doing right now.
Mm,
Like, I just feel so grateful and really happy with where I'm at right now and the content that I'm making. I feel like it's taken a long time to kind of figure out what I really want to say and how I want to say it. And I feel like I finally kind of like found my footing. And
hmm
of course, it's probably going to change because it always does. But I would love to just do more of it. I think the way that I see my career is that on one hand, I feel like there's the doing and the writing, Lonely Girl, that's the doing. And the content creation, the video creation is the doing. And then there's the teaching of what I do.
hmm
And I love both. And I'm grateful I get to do both. And so I would love to continue teaching more people how to make videos and how to write more honestly and how to share their work and not be afraid of self-promotion and to do it. And I would love to have maybe a couple of books in print by that point. That would be fun.
Mm.
I'd love to be a mom too. And so some of what I'm thinking about, I'm getting married in a couple of weeks.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you. It's really exciting. And so um, I think part of my thought process right now is like, how can I really be, how am I going to build a family and still also do these things that I love to do as well? And like, how do I blend both? And so that's
Mm,
kind of where my thoughts have gone recently. And so
mm.
I would love to have the type of life where I can do both and I have the flexibility. So we'll see.
Yeah, that's a great answer. And kind of weirdly pertinent because my wife and I literally having a conversation about half an hour before this about all this kind of stuff because we're both solopreneurs and we are very invested in our work and the work takes up a lot of our time. And we were literally talking about family and, having kids at some stage in the near future and all that sort of thing. So it's funny how these things all kind of blend together, isn't it?
Oh my gosh. So what have you guys kind of come to? I mean, one question that Trevor and I have is like around maternity leave. I'm like, I probably should be setting money aside because no one else, you know what I mean? Like I'm the only
Yeah,
one who can put me on maternity leave. But
yeah.
yeah, what have you guys been thinking?
Yeah, so I mean, my wife's a wedding photographer. Again, kind of ironic. And she can dictate her own schedule in many ways. She could effectively, I don't really know how this would go down with her, but she could effectively go back to work relatively soon after she gave birth. But she could say something very different about this. This is just me spitballing here. But she can basically dictate her own time. She can say how long she wants to take off for it, and she has a network of other wedding photographers that she can lean on if she needs help with stuff in that regard. So we're lucky in the sense we have a lot of flexibility and time. We can kind of decide what we want to do, and we both work from home all the time, unless one of us is out. So we can kind of support each other quite well in that sense. We're both very invested in each other's companies as well. So I run everything by Christine. She tells me what she's going to be doing. She reads all my books. She's the first person who reads a finished first draft of one of my books, which is cool too. So she gets to give me some feedback straight away, and she's very honest about it too. But we've got a lot of flexibility. We've got a lot of time, in terms of how we want to do things. So I guess for us, it's going to be trying to decide what that looks like over the next few years and how we kind of automate as much of our businesses as possible and kind of make them work in the background, and how do we delegate things to other people so that we can spend more time with each other and with our eventual children as well. So you got me talking about stuff here now as well, Anna. You gotta turn the tables a little bit in terms of the questions, which is great. But yeah, it's a big challenge, isn't it? I think for writers and for solopreneurs and entrepreneurs, when you can't just sort of take that time off from your business that you
Yeah.
work for, and you have to kind of make it happen for yourself. It's definitely something to think about, isn't it?
Oh yeah, it
Mm,
totally is. But I also think we're really lucky too
yeah.
we have the types of careers that we do, because then I don't know, at least in my eyes, it does seem like there is flexibility there to some
Yeah.
degree. But then again, I've never done what I'm hoping that one day I will do, so we'll see.
Yeah. Awesome. What does Trevor do, by the way?
Trevor is a field operations manager for a technology company.
Wow.
So he is, yeah, he's project manager, and he really is, everyone calls him dad. He is dad, like, to every sense of the word, because he's just always on time. He's keeping everybody in check. He's like just making sure everyone's okay, like is very organized and very has a strong attention to detail. And so we couldn't be more different. Right, but it's great. It's good.
Good.
It's a good mix.
Good. That's exciting for you guys as well. I'm really happy for you. And I just want to quickly ask two more questions.
Yeah.
The first was about you mentioned about wanting to write other books. Lonely Girl is a memoir. So would you want to write fiction in future? Obviously, maybe there's a fiction element to Lonely Girl as well. I don't really know, but would you want to write, fiction? And if so, what kind of genre would you most like to write in?
Great question. I think part of what I've noticed writing memoirs that I am working with the truth of what really happened
Mm,
and sticking to that. And
mm,
I have enjoyed it immensely. And I think there is a fictional component to Lonely Girl. It definitely reads more like fiction for sure.
mm,
But it's also opened my mind to what could be possible if I were to write fiction. And
mm.
like how fun that would be to actually just make it up instead of having to like, okay, wait a second, what actually happened here? You know what I mean? It's just such a different um thought
Different
process.
approach. Yeah.
So yeah, I would love to take a stab at fiction one day. Who knows, maybe. But
Mm,
at the same time, I have loved memoir, and
mm,
it's fun to give myself the permission to write about my experience and really write about it fully
mm.
without trying to censor or limit myself, and just like that is the job. The job is to write about what happened and how I felt about it, and how cool is that, you know?
Yeah.
It's so
Awesome.
fun. So I think other future memoirs, maybe in the future, who knows?
Because I'm sure you've got enough stories to tell that you could write two or three or four books based on it.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think I'm in one right now, you know? So it's like, well, it's cool to think, okay, what will this turn into, this period of my life? How will I think about this in the context of writing a book in 10 years? That could be interesting.
Yeah. This isn't the last question I was going to ask you. I just thought of it there now. But
Mhm.
whenever they turn this into a movie, your story, which actress would you want to play you in the movie?
Such a good question. Oh man. It's funny because all of the actresses that come to my mind are now older, because I just admire them so much when I was younger.
Mm,
And I was 26 in the book, and so somewhere around that age. But I guess I I don't know. Rachel McAdams is like someone that I just love. I just love her look, and I just think she's so amazing and so good at what she does. I don't know
mm.
if she'd be the perfect character fit, but I don't know. That was the first person who came to my mind.
She's a good actress. That'd be a good choice.
Yeah.
Brilliant. And then Anna, just the last question, is the one I ask everyone in these podcast calls, and it's if you had one golden nugget of advice to give to writers who want to earn a living through their writing, what would it be?
Don't be afraid to promote your work.
Or no?
Put it out there.
Yeah,
I think that there's this tendency we want to kind of protect our work and our writing. Like it's sacred, it's special to us, but we have to just share it and keep sharing it relentlessly over and over again. And eventually, it's only a matter of time
yeah,
before something takes off.
brilliant. That is good advice, and I agree with that as well. I think that's one thing I really struggle with is, writing a book's one thing, but telling people
Yeah,
about it is something
it's
else,
a totally
isn't it?
different thing. Yep. But you know what, David, I've really enjoyed especially your notes. I mean, I feel like you do a really good job, and you're spot on. It's precise, you're consistent. Like I've really enjoyed following you. And so I feel like it is something you do an excellent job at.
Thank you, appreciate that. I just spend most of my time experimenting and seeing what works best, and I'm running a big experiment right now in terms of like note posting frequency and the kind of notes that I post. So you've probably seen an absolute splurge of stuff from me over the last few weeks, but it's just because I'm testing stuff and trying to see what Substack likes best and what my
Yeah.
readers and followers like best. So I hope to narrow that down and then write about it and sort of detail exactly the process I've gone through and that sort of thing. So there's a bit of an insight into my seemingly erratic posting schedule at the minute.
Oh my gosh, it does
Um,
not appear erratic to
is it
me.
not?
No, not at all. But can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
What have you found to be the most effective on notes specifically?
So it changes. I think that in terms of getting, you know, engagement like likes and restacks and that sort of thing, if you can put up something that will resonate immediately, like whether that's just a bit of text where you say like you share like a struggle that you're going through, it can be like a single line, it can be just something that really hits people right in the heart, in terms of writing, or even an image. Images tend to do quite well too. So if you can sum that up in a picture or in a text-based picture as well, that kind of thing works quite well. But it's so random because like I shared a post earlier about how a picture of one of my dogs resulted in getting a paid subscriber. So I don't know how that even happened, but the person must have just clicked through to my publication from the picture itself, or they must have just liked dogs, and then it just came from that. So it's really random. My main thing with notes is that you need to share about yourself as a person, and then obviously you get this in what you're doing on your book. But if you can share snippets about yourself and show that you're a real person, especially in the age of artificial intelligence when so much stuff on the internet is just complete fake, if you can share that you're real and you can say, this is what I'm really going through, this is what my life looks like, this is what my family and my friends and my pets look like, and what my neighborhood and my country looks like, it resonates with people and it just helps build that connection between you and your followers and then your subscribers as well. So um, that's my main advice. That's the one thing that's definitely held true the entire time I've been on Substack is sharing yourself as a real human being, and that definitely impacts on how quick people will go from just find out about you to trusting you and wanting to like subscribe and eventually become paid subscribers too. So yeah, as I said, it's an ongoing process. It's just a journey, and
Okay.
it's like with social media, with TikTok, with everything, it's figuring out what works, what people like, and then kind of leaning into that and
Yep.
finding a balance between what the platform wants and what you feel comfortable with doing as well.
Yes.
Because you can create a real fake version of yourself online, or you can just share who you are as a person and find that balance. I think, which is difficult to do, and you've definitely done it with TikTok, obviously, and I'm learning from you as well. Like I'm watching what you're doing and I'm trying to see what works for you. And obviously your audience is a lot bigger than mine. But I can definitely see what you're doing. But yeah. But Anna, I really appreciate this. It's really cool to chat to
Thank
you.
you
Like
so
it's
much.
really
It's
cool
great.
conversation. And I'll be sharing this relatively soon. And I'll put snippets from this on YouTube as well. So we take little bits and maybe like 1 or 2 minute parts of the conversation, share that too. So you can look out for that as well. But I really appreciate this. Best of luck with your wedding in a couple of weeks as well. I'm sure that's very exciting for you guys. Yeah, lots to do.
Lots to do.
Yeah. But yeah, I appreciate it. And go and
Yeah.
pet your Labrador for me after this, and I'll pet my
Yes, I
dogs as well.
will. Thank you. This was awesome. I appreciate it so much.
Yeah, no problem. I really appreciate it, Anna, and I will see you on Substack real soon.
Okay, sounds good. See you
Thank
soon.
you.